on the discussion list.
Let's speak with Ridzwan Rahmat. He's Principal Defence Analyst at Jane's, a UK-based defence publication and consultancy firm. Ridzwan, always nice seeing you. Let's talk about the US and China. Their defence talks in Beijing was cancelled. Now they're here in Singapore. How important is it for the UN's defence chief, James Mattis, and the Chinese Defence Minister Wei Fenghe to speak to each other here in Singapore?
I think it's very important. As we know, things are not very good on the economic front. And on the military-to-military ties, there's also a lot of friction happening. The US just flew some bombers over the South China Sea. There was this near collision in the South China Sea. So I think if there is no progress made on the military front, I think the ties between the two countries are on a downhill overall.
How do you think the talks between these two will turn out? I mean, yesterday they met, and Jim Mattis did say that they were quite open and candid in his meeting with Wei Fenghe. What's to prevent tensions from becoming a full-blown conflict?
Well, actually, all this while, since 2014, there is already a mechanism known as the Code for Unplanned Encounters at Sea. That is the protocol that was ratified at the Western Pacific Naval Symposium in 2014, so that whenever there's an encounter between warships, tensions will not escalate. But how willing are parties to abide by this code? From my understanding from US Navy officials, that particular near miss between the two warships, the US Navy actually tried to exercise the protocol, but according to them, the Chinese Navy ignored their requests. So, that's one example of how a code is already existing, but because parties are not willing to abide by it, tensions are going to escalate anyway.
Yeah, but why as well? You're going to be speaking to the Chinese. Why provoke them by flying those B-52 bombers?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think the US has a choice, because in May 2018 this year, the Chinese themselves made their first ever landing of their strategic bomber on Woody Island. There's a runway on Woody Island, and when that bomber is able to land and take off from that particular runway, countries as far as Singapore are now within striking range of their strategic bombers. So, the US Navy's movement in the past few days, I think, is to allay fears among partner countries and to send a very strong signal to the Chinese that the Americans are here and we are not worried about your own maneuvers in the South China Sea.
Ridzwan, you just said how important it was for Wei Fenghe and Jim Mattis to have that dialogue just yesterday. So how important is it for Jim Mattis to stay on as defense chief after the U.S. midterms? Because he's been described as one of the more low-profile diplomats, but Trump has also hinted that he's more of a Democrat. Yeah,
I mean, I saw the interview on 60 Minutes. I think President Trump himself is trying to downplay that particular comment now, and Mattis has said that Mr. Trump is 100% behind him, and that whether he's a Democrat or Republican, I think he's committed to doing his job. Regardless whether he stays on in the office, I think there will be continuity with the next defense chief in the US, so I don't think the personality itself will be a problem.
Okay, a few months ago, ASEAN and China sat down and they want to seal their own code of conduct. How close are we to actually seeing signatures on this little deal?
Well, the negotiations have been ongoing for more than 15 years, and I'm a bit skeptical on it, although our minister has hailed that as the recent progress as a milestone. So it goes back to the interpretation of the code of conduct. Even if a COC is ratified, how will the different parties interpret the code that has already been ratified? That will be where the rubber meets the road. I don't think just having a document like that will change much unless the parties are all aligned in the interpretation of the document.
Absolutely. I mean, you're skeptical of that ASEAN and China code of conduct. So are we likely to see code of conducts being established in the near future between ASEAN and bigger countries like Europe, the US, and maybe even Australia?
I think it's being very ambitious, that particular notion, because it's already hard. It's already so difficult for ASEAN and China to ratify a code of conduct between ourselves. When it involves extra regional powers, you bring in other interpretations beyond this region, and I don't think that's going to sit well with China especially.
Yeah, China is also quoting some of the ASEAN nations in regards to military drills, military exercises, especially with Malaysia and Thailand. So other than boosting security ties, is there more to this trilateral relationship?
I think China is learning from the US. I think how the US military has built this very strong relationship with partners in this region is because of the numerous exercises, military exercises, humanitarian assistance, and I think Chinese have learned from that. They know that there's a limit to how much hard power can achieve. I think they need to do more soft power by conducting military exercises and humanitarian assistance drills. So they are following the template that has been set by the U.S., and I think they hope to achieve what the U.S. has achieved in this region in the future.
Fantastic.
What do you know?
Yeah, nice to
China
say. Thank you so
learning
much,
from the US.
Ridzwan. We were
Areas
speaking.
of commonality.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Ridzwan.
so there we go. Ridzwan Rahmat, Principal Defense Analyst at Jane's. Thank you for your time, sir.